The station bar was always loud, but tonight it felt like someone had turned the chaos up 3 notches. The air stank of spiced grog and wet fur, and somewhere in the corner a trio of insectoid traders were clicking in rhythm like broken castanets. I was 2 mugs into the cheapest human-safe swill they had, the kind of drink that stripped enamel and pride in equal measure, when I made my mistake. I'd been arguing with a crewman over ducking fees, drunk enough to believe I was witty but sober enough to remember later how dumb I sounded. He said something about how humans were a fragile race, and I, in my infinite genius, slurred back, fragile enough to still kick the tail off your alpha bitch. The bar went quiet. Even the insectoids froze mid-click. My words, it turned out, had traveled farther than I intended. Towering over the counter, her amber eyes locked on me, was a wall of muscle, fur, and sharp white teeth, the Beastwoman alpha herself. She rose slowly, her shadow crawling across the bar like the promise of violence. "Did you," she rumbled, voice like gravel grinding metal, "just challenge me?" I blinked, brain scrambling. Challenge? No, I was insulting her, that's different. But before I could form the words, the crowd started buzzing in their guttural tongue. Their translator implants spit out garbled fragments. He fights, he courts, he offers strength to bind. And just like that, I was apparently Romeo with a bare gut. Backing down wasn't an option. Not here. A refusal would have made me look weak, and weakness in a room full of predators was basically painting a bullseye on my back. So I did the only thing a human could do in that moment. I shrugged like it was casual and said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" The crowd roared. Tables overturned as the bar cleared space. Somebody shoved me forward into the circle. I stumbled, clutching my mug like it was a shield. The alpha grinned, all fangs and promise of broken bones. The fight started with a swing I barely dodged. Her claws sliced the air where my face had been, close enough that I smelled scorched fur from the friction. The audience howled approval. I scrambled, ducking under a table leg someone had tossed in as a weapon. My heart was thundering, lungs burning, but adrenaline has a funny way of making terror feel like comedy. Every dodge was misinterpreted as a mating dance. Every accidental shove became assertion of dominance. The translator whispered things like, "He endures. He prolongs. He makes her wait for the climax," which made me want to crawl into the nearest trash chute. The alpha swung again, and I blocked with my mug. It shattered, drenching us both in sour ale. She licked it off her lip and growled, "Low and hungry, strong flavor. I like." The crowd whistled, stumping claws against the floor. I was gassed after 3 minutes, already sucking wind. My arms felt like lead, and sweat stung my eyes. But she was panting too. Maybe not from fatigue, maybe from excitement, but the crowd didn't care. To them, I'd done the impossible, I lasted. Someone shouted, "No male has kept up with her this long." Another cried, "He endures all night." And just like that, I wasn't a drunk idiot anymore, I was a legendary suitor with supernatural stamina. The alpha caught me in a bear hug, ribs creaking, spine screaming. She didn't break me, though. Instead she lifted me off the ground, spun me once like I was a trophy, and slammed her fist against her chest. "This human," she roared, "fights with fire. He proposes with strength." The crowd erupted, claws scraping metal tables, mugs pounding. "Proposal accepted," they chanted. "Proposal accepted." My brain short-circuited. Proposal? Marriage? I tried to wave my hands, sputtering, No, I was just trying not to die," but the translator took my panicked shouts and twisted them into poetry. "My heart resists death for you. I burn with refusal to quit on us." The alpha's ears flicked, and her grin widened. "Bold," she purred. "You fight with body and with word. You are mine now." She yanked me against her chest, for scratchy, armor plates cold against my sweat-soaked shirt. The bar howled in approval, cheering like they'd just witnessed the galaxy's weirdest wedding. My ribs protested, my dignity died a quick death, and somewhere in the back of my skull the realization sank in: I hadn't just survived a bar fight. I'd apparently gotten engaged. The worst part? As she dragged me out of the circle, possessive hand gripping my collar like a leash, the whispers followed me. He lasted longer than anyone before. He'll keep her satisfied for many cycles. Truly, human stamina is unmatched. I wanted to scream that I was winded after 5 damn minutes, that if anyone expected me to go all night they'd be sorely disappointed, but I kept my mouth shut. Every word out of me just made things worse. Better to play dead, I figured. Maybe they'd forget me. No such luck. By the time the Alpha hauled me to the bar counter, the crowd was chanting again, "Mate! Mate! Mate!" My ears burned, my pride shriveled, and the translator gleefully spat out one last line to seal my doom. He has given her his strength, his will, and his heart. The union is made. I collapsed against the counter, groaning. The Alpha leaned down, her hot breath against my neck. "Tonight, human," she whispered with dangerous sweetness, "we will see if you can fight as well in the den as in the ring." And all I could think was, I should have just kept my mouth shut about ducking fees. I didn't walk out of that bar so much as get hauled out like a prize-winning hog at a county fair. The Alpha had one fist clenched around my collar and the other raised to the crowd, who cheered as if we'd just announced Galactic peace instead of an accidental engagement. Every stump of her boots echoed my doom. The station's promenade was wide, loud, and neon-lit, but even the vendors paused mid-hustle to watch us pass. I heard whispers ripple in half a dozen languages, all variations of, "That human? He's the one who lasted." Some made obscene gestures that probably weren't obscene to them, but sure looked obscene to me. By the time we reached the Alpha's den, the clan's communal hall that smelled like sweat, cooked meat, and fur oil, I'd resigned myself to my fate. Inside, banners fluttered, torches burned, and half the tribe gathered like they'd been waiting for the wedding all their lives. The Alpha slammed me down at the central table with a grin sharp enough to cut steel. "Behold! My mate," she announced. The hall erupted. Claws clanged mugs against metal, tails slapped stone floors, and somewhere a horn bellowed like an interstellar trombone. Then came the food. Plates piled high with meats that steamed, fruits that dripped syrup like spilled nectar, and pastries shaped so suggestively I blushed just looking at them. A bowl of something tentacled wriggled on its own. The Alpha shoved it in front of me and said, "Eat, mate. Show them your hunger." I poked it with a fork. It twitched back. The crowd leaned in, waiting. I swallowed hard, jammed the fork through, and chewed as if my life depended on it. It tasted like calamari soaked in battery acid. I gagged but forced it down. The aliens cheered as though I'd just performed foreplay on the dinner. "Such appetite," someone shouted. "He will never tire of her." My translator helpfully announced my muttered "kill me now" as, "I crave endlessly for her touch." Laughter rolled like thunder. The Alpha clapped me on the back so hard I coughed up a piece of tentacle, which they took as proof of my generosity. Then came the toasts. Mug after mug was shoved into my hands, each alien making some pun I didn't fully understand. "To the man who fought her all night and still stands," one bellowed. "To his boundless thrusts of will," shouted another. Every time I tried to correct them, the translator betrayed me. When I said, "No, I just got lucky," it announced, "Her luck is my eternal seed." The Alpha leaned close, amber eyes burning, and whispered, "Your tongue is quick. The tribe loves your boasting." I wanted to tell her my tongue was usually only quick when tasting cheap bay and bad decisions, but I shut up before that turned into a vow of oral devotion. Children darted up to the table, fur bristling with excitement, peppering me with questions. Do human males fight before every mating? How many challenges can you last in a night? Is it true your species has 2 hearts? I tried to tell them no, no, and dear God no, but the translator warped it all. Yes, I fight endlessly for her. Yes, I can last all cycles of the moons. Yes, my second heart beats only for her. By the time they scampered off, I was apparently some kind of mythological stud. The Alpha rose, slammed her mug against the table, and roared, Tonight, we celebrate his proposal. Tomorrow, he proves himself against rivals. Rivals. The word hung in the air like a guillotine. Around the hall, hulking beastmen snarled, glaring daggers at me. Bigger, meaner, hairier versions of her, each with enough muscle to snap me in half like kindling. They clearly weren't thrilled some scrawny pink newcomer had stolen their queen. One particularly massive rival slammed his fist into the table, denting the steel. "You think this fragile thing can satisfy an alpha?" he growled. "His cheating. Some trick." The hall hushed. All eyes turned to me. I raised my hands helplessly. "Hey, I didn't ask for this." But of course the translator rendered it as, "I welcome all challengers, for she is worth every fight." The hall erupted again. The alpha's grin widened, sharp and hungry. She wrapped her arm around me and announced, "He will prove himself. He will face trials of strength, endurance, and devotion. And he will prevail, because he is mine." The crowd banged fists, tails, claws. Trials! 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 I slumped in my seat, mug dangling uselessly from my hand. I wasn't a warrior, I wasn't a hero, I wasn't even particularly athletic. I was just a dumb human with a bad habit of opening my mouth at the wrong time. But now I was also fiancé to a 10-foot muscle goddess who thought a 5-minute brawl was the galaxy's hottest foreplay. As the feast dragged on, I downed mug after mug, hoping the alcohol would drown me before the rivals did. No such luck. The alpha kept pulling me close, whispering things that made my ears burn. "Tomorrow, you show them your stamina again. Tonight, you rest, unless you wish to begin early." The crowd howled at that, clearly understanding every implication. Someone shouted, "Don't let him tire himself too soon." Another answered, "Humans don't tire, they go again and again." The hall shook with laughter. I buried my face in my mug, praying for a black hole to swallow me. Instead, I got more toasts, more food, more eyes on me like I was the galaxy's hottest piece of prime rib. Every move I made, every word I spoke, was turned into proof of my undying devotion, my boundless stamina, my legendary virility. And sitting there, surrounded by fur and firelight, one thought looped through my head: if I survived tomorrow's trials, I was never drinking cheap station swill again. The next morning I woke up with a head like a dropped engine block and a fur blanket that turned out to be the alpha herself, still wrapped around me like a victorious python. My ribs felt like they'd been used as a drum kit. I tried to slip free, but her arm was the weight of a starship hull. When her eyes opened, she smiled like a predator who'd cornered dinner. "Today," she purred, "you prove yourself." By prove, she meant walk into a courtyard filled with her rivals. There were at least 7 of them, each bigger than the last, their muscles straining against bone armor, claws clicking as they sized me up. The tribe gathered on the edges, eager for the show. I'd seen less bloodlust at a demolition derby. One stepped forward, teeth bared. "You think a drunken dance makes you worthy? We demand trials." The others grunted approval. "Fine," I croaked, voice cracking, "what kind of trials?" The alpha grinned proudly, announcing for all to hear, "Strength, stamina, and devotion." The crowd roared the words back like a holy chant. Strength? Stamina? I had neither. Devotion? I barely managed commitment to a gym membership. But backing out wasn't an option, I'd be torn apart. My only weapon was the universal power of human bullshit. The first rival hauled out a boulder the size of a refrigerator. He lifted it overhead with a roar, veins bulging. The crowd cheered. He dropped it with a crash that shook dust from the rafters. Then he pointed at me. I stared at the rock like it had just insulted my mother. There was no way in hell I was lifting it. So I did what any desperate human would do, I improvised. I strutted up, flexed like an idiot, and instead of lifting, I hopped onto the rock and stood there with my arms wide. Strength, I declared, is not just carrying weight, it is bearing the burden with style. The translator, of course, made it worse. My strength is standing firm, even when crushed beneath her beauty. The crowd gasped as if I'd dropped a Shakespearean sonnet. The alpha's ears twitched, eyes shining. Poet, she whispered. The rival snarled, furious. Next was stamina. Another rival slammed down 2 massive jugs of something bubbling and green. Drink, he challenged. Last longer than me, human. Perfect. A drinking contest. Finally, something in my skill set. He guzzled his jug in 3 swallows, foam dribbling down his chin. I lifted mine, praying it wouldn't melt my stomach lining, and chugged. It tasted like paint thinner and lime juice. My throat burned, my eyes watered, but damned if I wasn't going to die trying. He staggered, belching smoke, and dropped unconscious. The crowd roared. I swayed, wiped my mouth, and slammed the empty jug down. Another, I croaked, chest heaving. The translator twisted it into, her love is endless, I thirst again and again. The crowd went feral, howling like beasts in heat. Someone shouted, he can go all night. I wanted to die. For devotion, the third rival knelt and offered a blade. Cut your hand. Bleed for her. The crowd murmured reverently. No way. Human blood here? They'd sniff me out like a steakhouse. Instead, I grabbed the blade, nicked my palm just enough to draw a drop, then dramatically pressed my hand to my chest. My blood already flows for her. The translator helpfully rendered it. Every drop inside me belongs to her alone. The alpha actually blushed, or maybe that was the firelight, but she licked her lips in a way that promised I was screwed later. The crowd wailed approval. The rivals fumed. But it wasn't over. The biggest of them stepped forward, broader than the rest combined. His voice boomed, he must survive the gauntlet. The gauntlet turned out to be a brutal obstacle course of swinging logs, spikes, and walls designed for 10-foot monsters, not a hungover human. I stumbled through like a clown at a marathon, slipping, tripping, scraping my knees raw. Every fall got laughter, but the alpha shouted, see how he rises again. When I face-planted into mud and spat it out, the translator claimed I said, even the dirt cannot keep me from her side. The crowd erupted. By the end, I crawled across the finish line on hands and knees, gasping, bruised, covered in filth. The alpha swooped down, scooped me up like a bridal carry, and raised me high. He endures. He is mine. The rivals growled, but the tribe's cheers drowned them. They couldn't argue with a crowd whipped into frenzy by every accidental double entendre. One last rival, desperate, shouted, then let him sing for her. Sing? Oh, fantastic. I was drunk, exhausted, and apparently now auditioning for interstellar karaoke. But hell, if I was going down, I was going down loud. I grabbed the nearest jug as a microphone and belted out the first Earth song that came to mind, a filthy old drinking chant from my academy days. The words were slurred nonsense about rum, women, and bad decisions, but the translator turned it into high poetry. I pledge her rumbling passion, I raise her beauty high, I drown in her sweetness, I live only to please. The whole fell silent, then exploded. The alpha's eyes went wide, and she clutched me tighter. He sings of me, she shouted. He bears his soul. The rivals slunk back, defeated, while the crowd howled approval, pounding the floor. I dangled in the alpha's arms, drunk, broken, humiliated, but somehow victorious. Humans weren't stronger. We weren't faster. We sure as hell weren't better fighters. But nobody could bullshit like we could. And right then, staring at my furious rivals and my beaming bride-to-be, I realized the cruelest irony. In the eyes of her people, I wasn't just winning. I was romantic. I should have known the rivals wouldn't give up that easily. Losing in public burned too deep, and the tribe loved me too much now for them to risk open rebellion. So they did the next best thing, demanded the final right. Not another obstacle, not a drinking contest, not even karaoke. No, this one was worse. The union duel, one growled, and the crowd went quiet. The alpha's grin spread like wildfire. Perfect. He will complete what he began. The union duel. The words alone gave me indigestion. I leaned toward her and hissed, what the hell is that supposed to mean? She stroked her chin thoughtfully, fangs glinting. It is our oldest right. A fight that is also a binding. Every strike, every dodge, every fall is a vow. My stomach dropped. Another fight. Except this time, it wasn't just survival. It was the wedding ceremony. If I lost, I'd look weak. If I won, I'd look like I'd consummated the damn thing in front of the whole tribe. The crowd roared for blood and passion alike. They dragged me into the center of the hall, cleared space, and ringed us with torches that burned like judgment. The Alpha faced me, towering, eyes blazing gold, muscles rippling under her armor. She looked less like a woman and more like every heavy metal album cover I'd ever seen come to life. She cracked her knuckles. Do not hold back. They must see you mean it. I wanted to hold back every bone in my body. Instead, I raised my fists, wobbling like a puppet held together with duct tape and prayer. The duel began. She lunged first, claws flashing. I ducked under, barely, stumbling so hard I looked like I was breakdancing. The crowd gasped. The translator gleefully announced, "He bows in devotion, he humbles himself before her power." When she swept my legs out, I fell flat on my back. Pain flared through my spine, but the audience erupted in applause. He offers his body to her mercy. Every accidental slip became romance. Every desperate block became poetry. I was sweating bullets, panting like a dying mule, but they cheered like I was the galaxy's smoothest lover. At one point, she had me in a headlock, squeezing hard enough that stars popped in my vision. I tapped her arm frantically, the universal human sign for "please don't murder me." She loosened instantly and raised me up. The crowd gasped again, and the translator made it worse. He surrenders his heart into her hands. The tribe howled, chanting, "Union! Union! Union!" The Alpha lifted me over her head like a prize. He yields only to me. The bond is sealed. The crowd erupted. Mugs crashed against tables. Fists pounded. Tails whipped. They weren't watching a duel, they thought they just witnessed the climax of the greatest love story ever told. I dangled there, bruised, humiliated, half-conscious, but apparently married. The rivals tried one last time. This human uses tricks. He twists words. The Alpha snarled, fangs bared. And yet he endures. No one else has lasted. No one else has sung. No one else has bled for me. He is mine. She dropped me onto her shoulder like a sack of potatoes, carried me through the cheering tribe, and headed for her private quarters. I flailed weakly. Wait, I didn't agree to any of this. The translator betrayed me again. I am ready to begin our eternity together. The crowd's cheers followed us down the hall. Inside her den, the torches burned lower, shadows thick and heavy. She set me on the furs, her eyes gleaming. You fought well. You sang, you bled, you endured. Tonight, you prove again. I croaked, "Lady, I can barely stand. I've got one lung left. My spine's in 3 pieces. I'm running on fumes and regret." The translator purred, "I am weak without you, but with you, I rise again." Her ears flicked. Her grin widened. Bold. I wanted to die. She leaned close, her voice low, velvet wrapped in gravel. "Do not fear. The tribe has seen enough. Now it is only us. You fought with fire. Tonight, you fight with passion." I pressed my palms over my face. "Kill me now." The translator declared, "Take me now." Her eyes glowed like twin suns. Gladly. The next hours were a blur of fur, claws, laughter, and me swearing my body was going to snap like a breadstick. By some miracle, or maybe just sheer dumb human resilience, I lived. Barely. When I stumbled out of her den the next morning, half dead but upright, the tribe was waiting. They erupted in cheers, chanting my name, praising my boundless stamina. One muttered, awestruck, "Humans, they fight all night." Another whispered, "He will change the Alpha's line forever." The rivals glared, humiliated. The Alpha stood beside me, proud and possessive, tail flicking like a whip. "He is mine," she announced again, and this time no one dared challenge. I staggered, bleary, aching everywhere. The crowd saw determination. The translator said, "I will never leave her side." The tribe bowed. Even the rivals lowered their heads. The Alpha squeezed my hand, claws careful against my skin. "You are strange, human. Weak, fragile, yet clever, stubborn, and enduring. You will make a fine mate." I wanted to scream that it was all a cosmic misunderstanding, that I'd only wanted a drink and a quiet night. Instead, I croaked, "Great." The translator boomed, "Great is my joy to bind myself to her." The cheers rose like thunder. I looked at her, at the tribe, at the whole absurd nightmare of it all, and one thought burned through the haze. Humanity had no business surviving in this galaxy. We weren't the strongest, or the fastest, or the fiercest. But damn it, we could bluff, improvise, and bullshit our way into anything. Even into the arms of a Beastwoman Alpha who thought a bar fight was a marriage proposal. The Alpha leaned close, lips brushing my ear. "Tonight," she whispered, "we fight again." I groaned. I really need to learn alien idioms. The crowd roared with laughter, the torches flared, and somewhere in the back of my mind I accepted the horrible truth. I was now the husband of a 10-foot alien warrior queen, and everyone in the galaxy thought it was romantic.